Everybody loves a parade. George M. Cohan once put that truth to verse when he wrote, "You won't do any business if you haven't got a band. The folks expect a street parade with uniforms so grand." Yes, it's true, isn't it? Everybody, just about everybody, loves a parade. There's even a parade in the New Testament. It is called the Palm Sunday Parade. Let's set the scene. It was Passover time. People were gathering in Jerusalem from all over that part of the world. Ships were booked from every port on the Mediterranean. Foot travelers were converging in caravans. People were flocking to the holy city to celebrate the highest and the holiest of all the holy days. There was a festive air about the city of Jerusalem. The hawkers loudly announced their wares in the crowded bazaars along the narrow streets of the old city. Friends of long standing bumped into each other and visited a while, exchanging the latest bits of gossip from their respective villages. Hotels and boarding establishments were jammed to the rafters. Wherever one went in the city of Jerusalem that year, there was everywhere an air of excitement and expectancy. Why, it was almost as if the city was waiting the arrival of some great and noted king. And of course, that's precisely what was happening that Passover that year. The people were awaiting the arrival of the king. You see, years before, God had said that he would promise to send to them some great Messiah, some strong deliverer, someone who would restore the people of Israel to a position of ascendancy again. And ever since, the people had waited and hoped. And every year at Passover, that sense of expectancy reached a fever pitch. Surely, they thought, year after year, surely they thought this might be the year. And so that year at Passover, the whole city was electric with excitement. And that's why it's so significant that the Gospel of Luke in the 19th chapter tells us that that year, in fact, a king did enter the city of Jerusalem. That's what the Palm Sunday Parade was all about. Oh, I know, looking in from the outside, it really didn't seem to be very much of a parade. The paraders themselves were, for the most part, a ragtag collection of simple peasants, most of them from Galilee. The parade's sponsors, just a few fishermen and village folk from the hill country, and they really didn't have much of an idea what the parade was all about. The parade's grand marshal rode not in regal splendor on some prancing steed, but rather in lowly humility on the back of a young donkey. Yet somehow over it all there was an atmosphere of triumph. It was bright, it was colorful, and there were on every hand cheers and shouts of joy and acclamation. Could it be that this parade signaled the coming of the promised Messiah? If so, then surely Jerusalem was the natural place for his coronation. You see, the people of that city were people whose ancestors had been blessed by their dealings with God. The lyric songs of Isaiah had been repeated throughout their national history. The stern warnings of Jeremiah echoed in their national heritage. The bold condemnations of Amos flared in their national memory. Oh yes, when God chose to come in his promised Messiah, surely he would come to Jerusalem, that city more steeped in the ways of God than Athens in its heathen philosophy or Rome in its pagan power. And when God chose to come in his promised Messiah. Surely he would come to these people who knew him and loved him so well. For their eager response was assured, was it not? Luke says, no, their eager response was not assured. And that's why in the midst of this triumphant procession, suddenly there is this jolting note. Suddenly Luke says that Jesus looked at the city, and Jesus looked at the people around him, and Jesus began to weep. Think about that. Why, here amidst all of this joy and acclamation, would Jesus suddenly break into tears? How strange to see tears in the midst of a parade of cheers. Why did he weep? Luke goes on to tell us quite specifically that Jesus wept simply because these people who were crying out, Hosanna, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, did not in fact recognize the King when he came. Jesus wept over that city because of its blindness and its arrogance. He wept for her religious leaders who claimed the name of God but who were far away from God in their loyalties. He wept for her political leaders who turned a blind eye to the best interest of the people. He wept for her establishment figures holding fast to some dead past and oblivious to a living future. He wept over the city and the people of that city. He wept because he knew that this parade would end not with a crown, but with a cross. Not with a coronation, but with a crucifixion. He wept over the city because he came to his own, and his own received him not. That's what happened on that first Palm Sunday. They had a great parade. It was a parade of cheers, but it was also a parade of tears. Well, now we've set the scene. Let's therefore go on and try to master the message. You see, the message of Palm Sunday is a twofold message. The message of Palm Sunday is a message of missed opportunities. Jesus wept over that city because, as Jesus himself said, they did not know the time of their visitation. And Jesus still weeps over people who will not know or see their moments of opportunity in life. As I look back over my years in the ministry, I am continually bombarded by one thought, and that is that so much of what I have encountered in the way of trouble and tragedy along those years has been because of the blindness of missed opportunities. So many times we do not hear or see God when he visits us to show us the way. And always the results are painful. How many times have I stood with parents weeping openly because of children who are following the wrong path but who will not know it or see it? How many times have I sat with heartbroken husbands and wives whose marriages have taken a wrong turn but who turn a deaf ear to any appeal to turn back? How many times I have been with one for whom the death of a loved one has closed forever the door of opportunity, and listened with an agony of my own as the person cried out, if only, if only, if only. How many times have I looked back into my own life to some place of shame or guilt or regret or missed opportunity and said, why, oh why, oh why didn't I have the eyes to see? Or the pain of those missed opportunities in life. One of the greatest and one of the most popular players ever to play the game of baseball was Lou Gehrig of the New York Yankees. Lou Gehrig was not only an extraordinary athlete, he was an extraordinary man and sportsman. And that's what made so shocking an incident that took place once in the World Series. It was a very critical game. The Yankees were playing there. There were men on base, and Lou Gehrig was at the plate. And in that very critical situation, Lou Gehrig was called out on strikes. In fact, he had his bat on his shoulder when the third pitch screamed into the catcher's mitt, and the umpire cried, "Strike three, you're out." Lou Gehrig immediately threw his bat down in anger, and he wheeled around and muttered in disgust at the umpire and headed back toward the dugout. That was totally out of character for the great Lou Gehrig. And so it was that after the game, a reporter asked him what he was complaining about to the umpire. He said, "I wasn't complaining to the umpire. I simply said to him that I would give $1,000 to have another chance at that last pitch. And wouldn't we all? What wouldn't we give to have one more chance at some of those opportunities we missed along our life's way?" But my friends, understand, please, that the message of Palm Sunday is that today is all that matters in your life and in mine. Yesterday is history. We can learn from it, but that's all. Tomorrow is uncertain. We can speculate about it, but that is all. The only thing that really matters in your life and in mine is today. Today is the moment of opportunity. Today is the hour of our visitation. Thomas Carlyle said, "Our main business in living is not to see that which lies dimly at a distance, but rather to do that which lies clearly at hand." Today, right now, is the moment of opportunity for us. Today is the day of our visitation from on high. Use it well, my beloved. Use it well. For if we do not use it well, if we do not make the most of this day for the sake of Jesus Christ our Lord, then I tell you truly, Jesus Christ will weep for us today just as surely as he wept for the people of Jerusalem on that first Palm Sunday. Yes, the message of Palm Sunday is a message of missed opportunities. But the message of Palm Sunday is also a message of misunderstood objectives. Jesus wept for the people because, as Jesus himself says in the book of Luke, they did not understand the things that make for peace. Peace of mind and peace with other people and peace with God. And Jesus still weeps for those of us who do not understand the things that make for truly significant Christian living in this world of ours. You know, those people in that first Palm Sunday parade, they called Jesus Lord. And they were right, for so he is. But if you ever stop to think about the fact that something happened between the confession of Palm Sunday and the rejection of Good Friday, something happened there. They began to waver in their faith. Their doubts crept in. They had seen things in Jesus that they expected to see in the promised Messiah, yes, but they had also seen in Jesus some things that they didn't expect to see. I mean, they never expected to see that the Messiah would in fact be a man just the same as they were, that he would live among the poor, that the only possession he would have would be the robe that was on his back, that he would never make any claim whatever to might or to power, to throne or to territory. They never expected that. And so even though they called him Lord, they wavered, they doubted, and ultimately, because they didn't understand, they turned their backs upon him. And we do the same. We call him Lord, and the words flow so easily across our lips. But then we waver, and we doubt, and we begin to question, and we begin to wonder if he really is who he says he is, and if he really does what he says he does. And we begin to wonder why it is that if he is who he says he is, why it is that he doesn't use that great, awesome power of his and in one great fell swoop wipe out everything that's wrong in our world. We keep looking for someone who will come and save us from the perils and the difficulties and the heartaches and the heartbreaks and the hardships of this mortal life. And we forget that Jesus comes not so much to save us from something as to save us for something. He comes not so much to save us from the difficulties of this mortal life, but to save us for truly significant Christian living in the midst of this mortal life and even in the life that is yet to come. And we don't seem to understand who he is, what he really does. Lloyd C. Douglas has that magnificent story entitled The Robe. In there is a slave. His name is Demetrius. Demetrius was in the crowd on that first Palm Sunday, and he managed to elbow his way through the multitudes until he got up close to see Jesus. So close, in fact, that he says that he saw Jesus square in the face. And it was an utterly transforming moment for him. Later on, one of the other slaves was asking him about it, and he said, "Did you really get up close to him, Demetrius?" And Demetrius nodded his head, "Yes." And the other slave said, well, what do you think of him? Do you think he's crazy? And Demetrius shook his head emphatically, "No." And so then the other slave said to him, "Well then, do you think he's really a king?" And Demetrius looked at him long and hard, and he said, "I tell you, he is something more than a king." And that's it. Jesus is not just some king. Jesus is something more than a king. Jesus is the King of all kings. And he operates in a way we do not always understand. You see, he does not compel us by force, but he draws us by love. He does not push us down under the strength of his authority, but rather he lifts us up to his level by the power of his love. He does not command us as subjects. He calls us as followers. He does not say to us, "Give me what you have." Rather, he says to us, "I will give you what I have." And once he takes hold of your life and mine, then we can never again think the same way about who we are and what we do and the way we live and the world of which we are a part. For many years, George Matheson was the great blind preacher of Scotland. And the story is told of a servant woman who lived in a dark, dank cellar in the city of Edinburgh, but who every single Sunday would find her way out of that slum on foot and walk all the way across town to hear George Matheson preach. One Saturday, the neighbors around her in that slum area of Edinburgh saw her handful of belongings on the sidewalk. And they said to her, what are you doing? Why do you have your things here? And the woman said to them, I'm moving. And the neighbors responded as a chorus, why are you moving? And the woman replied, and her reply is also worth remembering. The woman replied, one cannot hear George Matheson preach Jesus Christ and live in a cellar. I will never, ever be worthy of that kind of accolade. But I must tell you, my friends, it has been the great hope and dream of my life that I might be the kind of preacher who preaches Jesus Christ in such a way that people are moved to rise up from the darkness of their lives and to find their way to a new day and a new light and a new hope and a whole new way of living in Jesus Christ. That's why Jesus came. That was his objective. And if we don't understand that, then Jesus will weep for us today just as surely as he wept for those people of Jerusalem on that first Palm Sunday. The message of Palm Sunday is a message of missed opportunities and a message of misunderstood objectives. So, yes, everybody loves a parade. And there's even a parade in the New Testament. It's called the Palm Sunday Parade. It was a parade of cheers, and yes, it was a parade of tears. But we need to remember that the last sound of that parade was not the sound of a sob. For do you understand that after Jesus wept over the city and the people, suddenly Jesus lifted his bowed head and blinked away the tears and straightened his shoulders and moved on ahead, seeking and searching after his own, calling out to them to walk in his way in life, telling them that it is never too late to put aside shame and guilt and regret and begin to find the whole new life that comes from following after him, hoping upon hope that those people and these people would rise up and respond in faith by crying out, lead on, O King eternal, we follow not with fears. It just may be that Jesus Christ will ride into your life and touch you right now and say to you, come, follow me. How will you reply? Yes. How will you reply?